The October 26th game was Kevin Stefanski's breaking point. Against the Patriots, the Browns opened strong, executing their scripted plays with precision. But once the script ran out, so did their offense. The team stalled, exposed by a lack of adaptability that has become Stefanski's defining flaw. Analysts immediately noticed. There were no mid-game adjustments, no quarterback switch, just a stubborn reliance on a failing strategy.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
It's the kind of performance that turns questions into accusations, especially when Shatter Sanders, a proven game-changer, remains sidelined in favor of the less effective Dillon Gabriel. This collapse wasn't just a bad game, it was a confirmation for Stefanski's critics. Everything that's been said about his limited play calling, rigid quarterback choices, and questionable leadership came crashing to the forefront. The refusal to pivot when it mattered most has made his coaching style impossible to defend. With media narratives intensifying and fan trust slipping, Stefanski now finds himself not just under pressure, but under siege. Kevin Stefanski just got hit with the most public, unfiltered critique of his coaching career, and it came from another NFL head coach. After the Browns collapsed against the Patriots on October 26th, Mike Vrabel didn't waste a second. No backhanded compliment, no passive-aggressive soundbite. Just straight to the point, gimmick coach. And it landed. Art. That one phrase sparked the kind of reaction you can't walk back. It spread across the NFL world like wildfire, not because it was outrageous, but because it was believable. Fit. The Browns' offense had just unraveled again after a hot start. The team looked like they had no idea what to do after their first 10 to 15 scripted plays. The moment the defense adjusted, the offense didn't respond. It didn't adapt. It disappeared. Which is exactly what Vrabel was calling out. The Browns came out looking polished, confident. A solid first quarter. But then, like clockwork, it was back to the same problems. No rhythm, no innovation, no bite. And all of it points to one thing. Kevin Stefanski's offense only functions when it's choreographed. When it's scripted. But when things get messy, when the game opens up and you need to improvise, it crumbles. And the fans are tired of watching it happen. They've seen this story too many times this season. The defense holds up. The offense opens with a drive that gives you hope. And then, the wheels fall off. The game slows down. Play calling gets conservative. And the Browns go down without a fight. That's not just poor execution. That's poor leadership. At the center of it all is the decision that's been hovering over this entire season. Why is Dillon Gabriel still starting over Shatter Sanders? This isn't about a QB controversy anymore. It's a full-blown credibility crisis. Shatter Sanders is ready. That's not speculation. That's not a fan theory. That's the consensus from every corner of the NFL that isn't in the Browns' locker room. He has the talent. He has the leadership. He's mobile, decisive, smart with the football, and he's done everything right. Except play. Because Kevin Stefanski keeps going with Gabriel. And it's not working. Gabriel's not awful. But he's not elevating the offense. He's not extending plays. He's not creating momentum. He's a placeholder. And yet, Stefanski has stuck with him week after week, even as games get away from them, even as the locker room reportedly grows more frustrated. That's where the problem goes from on-field performance to leadership failure. Because when your team sees a better option sitting on the bench and nothing changes, they notice. Players know who's producing in practice. They know who brings energy. And they know when the coaching staff is playing it safe instead of playing to win. The decision to keep Sanders benched doesn't just impact the scoreboard. It impacts everything. Morale, trust, belief in the system. You can feel the disconnect growing. And once that crack's wide open, there's no easy way to fix it. The media hasn't helped either. Coverage of the Browns' quarterback situation feels more controlled than critical. There's been a weird reluctance to press Stefanski on why Sanders continues to sit. When the topic comes up, it's brushed off with vague coach speak. We believe in our guys, we're evaluating week to week, or we'll go with the quarterback who gives us the best chance to win. But based on the results, it's clear those words don't mean anything anymore. And that silence is feeding into something bigger. A sense that the organization isn't being honest, not with the media, not with the fans, maybe not even with itself. That instead of adjusting to reality, they're spinning a narrative to protect the head coach. But when that protection starts costing you games, the story shifts. Stefanski's refusal to start Sanders has become symbolic. It's not just a personnel choice. It's a statement. A stubborn, inexplicable, and increasingly damaging statement about where this team's priorities are. And as the losses stack up, that decision becomes harder to defend. Even worse, it starts to feel like personal bias. That's a heavy accusation, but let's be honest. What else explains it? Sanders isn't being outperformed. He isn't causing problems. There's no off-field issue that anyone's aware of. Yet he remains on the sideline while the offense sputters. It doesn't look strategic. It looks like ego. And that's exactly what Verbal called out. His comment wasn't just about play design. It was about accountability, or the lack of it. About Stefanski refusing to evolve. About a coach who's more committed to proving his plan works than fixing what's broken. If Sanders had started 2 or 3 games ago, things might look different right now. There could have been a pivot, a spark, something for the fans to believe in again. But instead, the Browns are stuck in neutral, watching winnable games slip away. Watching a season with potential slide into irrelevance. The locker room sees it. The fan base definitely sees it. And now, thanks to Verbal, the entire league sees it too. And let's talk about the fan reaction because it's reached a boiling point. It's no longer just frustration, it's disillusionment. Browns fans are some of the most loyal, passionate supporters in the NFL. They've stuck through heartbreak, dysfunction, and disappointment year after year. But this feels different. This feels like a betrayal. Because this isn't about talent. It's not about injury. It's not about inexperience. It's about decision-making. And watching a clearly capable quarterback rot on the bench while the offense falls apart, it's not just painful. It's insulting. You don't bench your best player and expect fans to stay patient. You don't stick with a failing plan and expect the locker room to stay quiet. And you definitely don't survive a season like this without consequences. The calls for Stefanski's job are no longer a fringe opinion. They're becoming mainstream. Every week that Sanders doesn't play, those voices get louder. Every second-half collapse adds fuel to the fire. And if Stefanski doesn't change course soon, he might not finish the season at all. The Browns have a choice to make. They can keep pretending this is all part of the process. They can keep protecting a coaching staff that's clearly out of answers. Or they can take control of the narrative, bench Gabriel, start Sanders, and give this team a fighting chance. Because if they don't, this season won't just be a disappointment. It'll be a disaster. A wasted roster. A fractured locker room. And another year where Cleveland falls short, not because they weren't good enough, but because the people in charge refused to get out of their own way. So what happens next? That's on Stefanski. But the clock is ticking. And the excuses are gone. Let us know what you think in the comments. Should Shatter Sanders have started weeks ago? Is Kevin Stefanski doing damage that can't be undone? Or is there still a sliver of hope left in this season? Like this if you're over the gimmicks. Share it with every Browns fan who's been yelling at the TV since week 1. And don't forget to subscribe. We're not done with this story, and the next chapter might be the one where everything finally breaks. At this point, it's not even about the record. It's not about playoff odds or division rankings. This entire season has become a referendum on Kevin Stefanski's judgment. And every game he continues to start Dillon Gabriel over Shatter Sanders isn't just a questionable decision. It's a decision that feels deliberate. That feels personal. That feels reckless. Because no one is saying Sanders is perfect. But what they are saying, what everyone from analysts to former players to fans screaming from the cheap seats is saying, is that he's better than this. Better than what they've been forced to watch on Sundays. Better than what the Browns have been rolling out on offense since week 1. Better than being treated like some unproven project when he's clearly ready. And that's the issue. Kevin Stefanski isn't treating this like a meritocracy. He's treating it like a science fair project. Controlled environment. Rigid inputs. Scripted outputs. Everything built to work perfectly, on paper. But football doesn't work on paper. It's messy. It's chaotic. And right now, Stefanski is failing to lead through any of it. The moment things go off script, his offense disappears. Adjustments? Rare. Urgency? Missing. Quarterback creativity? Non-existent. And that brings us right back to Verbal's now infamous comment. Gimmick Coach. That one phrase said what months of game tape couldn't. Stefanski's system only works under ideal conditions, and there are no ideal conditions in the NFL. Verbal didn't just insult a peer. He exposed a pattern. A pattern that Cleveland fans have been quietly suffering through while national media tiptoed around it. But now it's front and center. Now it's undeniable. And now it's no longer just about game strategy. It's about leadership, or the glaring lack of it. When your team is spiraling and you refuse to change, you're not just losing games. You're losing trust. From the fans. from the locker room, and from the people who were once in your corner. That kind of erosion isn't fixed by one good drive or a lucky win. It's systemic, it's cultural, and it starts with the man holding the play sheet. And that man right now is failing to respond to the moment. There have been multiple chances for Stefanski to pivot. He could have changed course after the Patriots game. He could have used the media firestorm to his advantage. You know what, we're shaking things up. Sanders gets the start. It would have bought him time. It would have earned back a little trust. It would have shown he's capable of listening, adapting, evolving. But he didn't. Instead, he buried his heels deeper in the dirt and stayed with Gabriel. Again. Despite the obvious. Despite the offense sputtering. Despite the entire football world watching and waiting for the inevitable shift. And what that tells you is simple. Stefanski isn't just ignoring the noise, he's ignoring the reality. It's dangerous. It's delusional. And it's dragging the Browns down with him. This isn't about fan overreaction. This isn't Twitter noise or hot takes from sports radio. This is about a head coach making decisions that actively work against the team's best interest. And doing it with a straight face as if no one notices. But people notice. Everyone notices. You think the veterans in that locker room don't see what's happening? You think they haven't had conversations about it behind closed doors? When you've got a team that's been asked to grind through every practice, every film session, every fourth quarter snap, and then you ignore the guy who could actually win you games. That's how you lose them. One decision at a time. And the damage doesn't stop there. Because this isn't just about 2025. It's about the future. About what kind of culture you're building. About whether young talent actually gets developed, or whether it gets silenced because it doesn't fit someone's outdated blueprint. You want to know why franchises stay stuck in the middle? This is how. By doubling down on comfort instead of risk. By prioritizing system loyalty over player development. By letting coaches protect their own egos instead of holding them accountable to results. That's what's happening in Cleveland right now. A coach is actively tanking his own credibility by refusing to play the best quarterback on the roster. And nobody in the front office seems willing to do anything about it. Where's the urgency? Where's the accountability? Are they seriously going to ride this out until it's mathematically too late? Until the locker room fully fractures? Until Sanders requests a trade or simply checks out mentally? Because once it hits that point, there's no coming back. And the Browns, more than anyone, should know what it looks like when you waste generational talent out of pure dysfunction. They've lived it for decades. That's what makes this situation so painful. Not just that the Browns are losing, but that they're losing in a way that's familiar. In a way that fans have seen before. A coach ignoring reality. A quarterback controversy spiraling out of control. A roster with playoff potential getting dragged down by indecision and internal conflict. It's like watching the same movie on repeat, and the ending never changes. So what now? Well, Stefanski has one option left. Play Shatter Sanders. Start him. Commit to him. Not in some gimmicky package plays way. Not in garbage time. But for real. Build a game plan around him. Let him lead. Let him fail. Let him grow. Let him play. Because if he doesn't, if this charade continues through another loss or another lifeless offensive performance, then he's not just delaying a decision, he's writing his own exit memo. And honestly, at this point maybe that's what it takes. Because the Browns can't afford another lost season. Not with this defense. Not with this window. Not with this fan base on the edge of mutiny. The only question left is, will anyone in the building have the courage to make the move? Or will they let fear, pride, and politics drive this team straight into the ground? The most brutal part about all of this? It was preventable. Everything that's happened, every flat offensive second half, every missed opportunity, every game where the Browns looked totally incapable of responding once the script ran dry, could have been avoided with one decision. Start Shatter Sanders. That's it. That's the move that changes everything. That's the move that says, we're not settling for mediocrity. We're not hiding from change. We're ready to compete. But week after week, Kevin Stefanski has looked at that option and said no. Not because it's the wrong choice, but because it's not his choice. And that's the most telling part of this entire situation. Because this isn't about football anymore. It's about control. It's about image. It's about a head coach who's so locked into his own blueprint that he can't see the obvious cracks forming right beneath his feet. The Browns are crumbling on offense. That's not an exaggeration. That's not hyperbole. That's what the film says. That's what the stats show. And more importantly, that's what everyone watching can feel. And yet Stefanski keeps pretending that tweaking the margins will fix a fundamentally broken setup. And the fan base? They've moved past outrage. They've moved into numbness. Because when you lose to the same blueprint every week, when the first 15 plays look great and everything afterward falls into predictable, stagnant collapse, it doesn't even sting the same anymore. It's just fatigue. This team isn't being outplayed, it's being outcoached. And the refusal to start Sanders is the centerpiece of that dysfunction. No matter how much Stefanski and the front office try to talk around it, he's developing, we're managing reps, we like our QB room. None of it lands when you're sitting on a player with elite-level potential who's getting zero opportunity to prove himself. Let's not forget, this isn't some late-round rookie. This isn't a project player who needs 2 years of clipboard holding. This is Shatter Sanders. A quarterback with the poise, the accuracy, the command, and the respect of teammates, all sitting untouched on the sideline while Dillon Gabriel throws for 3.9 yards per attempt and burns another possession. It doesn't make sense on paper. It doesn't make sense on tape. And the fact that no one is saying why, that no real explanation has ever been given, is what's making this whole thing feel worse by the week. When fans are asking obvious questions and leadership won't even acknowledge them, that's when the spiral begins. And make no mistake, this is a full-on spiral. The locker room? They're watching. And no matter how many times coaches try to keep the message in-house, players talk. Players listen. And when they see a teammate putting in the work, showing up, bringing energy, and getting nothing in return, it changes the room. That belief in the staff? It starts to crack. It's the slow breakdown of trust. The kind you can't fix with a team meeting or a players-only dinner. And it's bigger than just one quarterback. This is about direction. This is about whether the people in charge are willing to make uncomfortable decisions to save a season, or whether they'll sit in denial while it burns. So far, it's been denial. And then came Mike Verbal. Say what you want about the delivery, but the message was clear. Stefanski's system is predictable. His approach lacks adaptability. And he's not coaching to win, he's coaching to survive. And when an opposing head coach says that out loud, on record, and doesn't walk it back, that tells you everything you need to know. Verbal didn't just critique a rival. He blew the lid off a conversation the NFL has been tiptoeing around all season. And now that it's out in the open, there's no going back. The Browns have become the talking point. Not because of their talent. Not because of their defense. Not even because of their record. But because of a quarterback controversy that didn't have to exist. And for what? For system loyalty? For a sense of control? For a coaching ego that refuses to bend? That's the hill Stefanski is choosing to die on. And the fallout is already here. Every time Gabriel trots onto the field, the frustration rises. Every time Sanders stays seated, the disbelief grows. And every time another press conference comes and goes without answers, the temperature goes up another degree. There's no more goodwill. There's no more benefit of the doubt. Stefanski has burned through all of it. And now, every move he makes is under a microscope. And if the next one isn't giving Sanders the reins, then the question won't be, why is he still starting Gabriel? It'll be, why is Stefanski still the head coach? Because this league moves fast. And when it turns on you, it turns hard. This isn't about one mistake. It's about pattern. About stubbornness. About whether a coach can admit when he's wrong before it's too late. So far, the answer has been no. And the Browns aren't the kind of franchise that can afford that. They've spent decades trying to build something sustainable. Something competitive. And now, just when the pieces are finally in place, they're watching it slip away, not because they weren't ready but because their coach wasn't. This team should be better than this. They are better than this. But until Sanders is given the chance to lead, we'll never know what this roster could have been. We'll never see the version of the Browns that this fanbase has waited years for. That's what makes this so devastating. Not the record. Not the losses. The waste. The waste of talent. The waste of trust. The waste of a season that could have been something, and instead is turning into just another chapter in Cleveland's long, exhausting story of mismanagement. And unless someone steps in soon, someone above Stefanski, it's going to get worse before it gets better. So what's left? Start Sanders. Let him lead. Let the season be about growth, about potential, about something other than watching a coach cling to a crumbling system. If the Browns do that now, maybe they can salvage what's left. But if not, then buckle up. Because this isn't just a quarterback battle anymore. It's a full-on collapse in progress. And it's being televised every Sunday. And here's the part no one wants to admit. This entire mess didn't have to be a meltdown. It could have been a turning point. The Browns had a chance to rewrite the narrative weeks ago. All it would have taken was one bold move. Put Sanders in. Give the fans a reason to believe again. Give the players a reason to rally. Send a message that you're not married to a broken plan just because it's yours. But Stefanski? He chose silence. He chose deflection. He chose to let the season spiral rather than take accountability. And now here we are. Every game feels like a referendum. Every snap Gabriel takes feels like another brick in the wall between the coaching staff and the people they're supposed to lead. Every second Sanders stays on the sideline just reinforces what everyone already suspects. This isn't about football anymore, it's about pride. And pride is a terrible game plan. You can feel the weight of it on the broadcast. Even commentators are starting to tiptoe around the issue. You wonder what we might see from Sanders if they ever gave him a shot. They say, voices tight with polite discomfort. It's the NFL equivalent of a teacher asking why the straight-A student never gets called on in class. And honestly, it's gotten that obvious. The problem isn't that Sanders hasn't earned it. The problem is that he has, and it's still not enough. That's what makes this so much more damaging than just a quarterback controversy. This is about the culture being built inside the franchise. The signal being sent to players, to fans, to future free agents. That even if you do everything right, your shot still depends on politics. That talent takes a backseat to control. That's a rotten foundation. And it's one Cleveland can't afford. Not again. Not after all the false starts. Not after all the rebuilds. Not with a fan base this loyal and this exhausted. So here's the reality. If Stefanski won't change course, then someone else has to. Because this season still has meaning. There's still time to let Sanders show the league, and this locker room, what the Browns could be if they stopped getting in their own way. But every week they wait, every game they waste, every quote that ducks the real issue? That's just more proof that maybe the wrong guy is holding the headset. Let us know what you think in the comments. Has Stefanski run out of chances? Is it already too late to save this season? Or does starting Sanders right now give the team a real shot to turn things around? Hit like if you're over the excuses. Share this with the Browns fans who've seen this movie too many times. And subscribe, because if change doesn't come soon, the real collapse is still on its way.